The Pacers won a totally normal game with no chaos and no drama and no issues late. They really did it. Tyrese Haliburton was great. Obi Toppin loves playing the Wolves. We have so much to get to, including a discussion on getting the 3 seed on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Tuesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, a ton to discuss from Pacers Wolves. The Pacers won a game that wasn't close late. They weren't losing with 17 seconds left. They didn't blow a 20-point lead. They just comfortably kept away a good team. Lots of standouts in this game on a micro level, on the macro level. They did that. They haven't done that in a long time. Their last comfortable win was Houston, like 3 weeks ago, maybe. I mean, it has been a while. At home especially, you could call Philly a comfortable win. It was, but they were down 16 in the first half. Regardless, they got it done. Tyrese Haliburton was sensational. Lots to discuss about his double-double streak. Andrew Nembhard was very good. Obi Toppin, I have an absurd stat to tell you about him. And at the end of this podcast, we're going to go a different direction. Gavin Shaw from Locked On Knicks asked me a question. Tony, you want to talk about the chase for the 3 seed and the team's goals? I said, heck yes, I do. Should the Pacers want 3? Are they going to catch the Knicks? Can they catch the Knicks? Should they want to catch the Knicks? We get into all that for the last 20 minutes today. We start with Pacers Wolves, where the Pacers won handily by 16 points, 119-103. And they were up 22 at the end of the third quarter. And then everybody saw it happen. Quick 9-0 Wolves run. I turned to Dustin Opirak. I said, here we go. No, mature Pacers in this one. TJ McConnell with 4 quick points. And that basically put the game away. The Pacers were never close or afraid ever again. I could never be a head coach. I would have taken out the bench at that time. McConnell came in and immediately steadied the ship with 2 very important shots. Credit to him. Credit to Rick Carlisle for that decision to stick with the bench there. The story of this game to me was how good Tyrese Haliburton was. I think Obi Toppin was farther above expectation than any other player, but Haliburton had speed in this game, and this is the second straight game where I've noticed that in a way that made me go, oh boy, he might be rounding into some form again, right? When he came back from the first injury, the hip thing, he was just like good to okay. That's a very harsh thing to say about someone who had 2 double-doubles with assists. He was quite good, but like compared to what he was showing post-All-Star break, it felt like not quite that. It has felt like that to me recently. The moment I knew this game was going to feature good Tyrese Haliburton was in the first half. He was running in transition up the floor with the ball and was going so fast that Jaden McDaniels was chasing him and fell down, leaning forward, trying to run as fast as he could to keep up with Tyrese Haliburton. Tyrese Haliburton was dribbling and handling the ball, and in the open floor dead sprint, Jaden McDaniels couldn't catch him. There were a couple moments of this game where Haliburton's speed was just on display. Over half his shots from 2. Longtime listeners know my obsession with the random Tyrese Haliburton 2-point shot stats, but when he takes majority 2s over 3s, that says a lot about the speed and agility that he has, the ability to get by guys, the ability to get to the floater or the rim or whatever spot it is on the floor. That moment early was a big part of that. He could get by guys. 7 threes, he made 3 of them. That's obviously going to lead to a floor of a decent game. 9 2s, and he made 6 of them. That's going to create a ceiling of a great game, and he made all 3 of his free throws. 24 points for Tyrese Haliburton in 29 minutes. The third quarter was particularly exceptional. 5 of his 7 makes came in that 5 makes came in that quarter on just 7 shots, 3 assists, 13 points in that quarter. Over half of what the Timberwolves scored in the third just came from Tyrese Haliburton. Only 11 points in the other 3 quarters combined, but that really stood out as a strong period where he was really cooking. And of course, the assists were fantastic again, 11 for him in this game of the Pacers 30. I thought the Pacers ball movement in this game was good. In general, that always starts with Tyrese Haliburton. So not like oh my gosh, wow, he had 24 and 11. Like it's amazing that's like almost pedestrian for him post All-Star break. Only 1 turnover as well. Agony from Tyrese Haliburton after his turnover. Agony as he threw it to Andrew Nembhard. They both made the same read on what was happening, but Nembhard kind of curled towards the rim, and I don't think Haliburton expected him to do that. He kind of just threw it out of bounds. His assist to turnover ratio is just crazy. So a terrific stat line, and this continues his absurd post-All-Star break stat run, right? This is, I believe, so they played Memphis the game after the All-Star break the Pacers did. Tyrese Haliburton, he blew it that day. Blew it, I say in jest. 22 points and 9 assists. So what was he thinking? Get one more assist, Tyrese Haliburton. They won that game by 14. Since then, every game he's played has been a double-double. 11 games. They're 8-3 in the 11 games. The 3 losses were the Milwaukee game where the bench tripped all over themselves, the Denver game where the Nuggets were just better, and the Miami game where both teams could not miss a 3 to save their lives. Regardless, they're 8-3 in that stretch. Entering this game that they just played against the Wolves, in that 10-game stretch, he was averaging 21.3 points and 12.2 assists per game. Post-Memphis. If you include Memphis, it's a little lower than that. So he actually lowered his assist average post-All-Star break with an 11-assist game. That's insane. That's so nuts. 24 points does boost his scoring average. His shooting splits in that stretch are tremendous. Entering today, it was 54.7 from the field and because of 61.8% on twos, 47.8% from 3. That's not going to last, although it could stay high, and 93.8% at the foul line. So yes, it's a 50-40-90 in the old method, and in the new method that I like to call the Shane Young method that I agree with, it's 62-48-94 entering this game. Insane, efficient once again. Tonight, the Wolves just couldn't stop him, right? And the Pacers are so good when that happens. They can run their bench out and play even, and it doesn't feel good, but the bench was about even in this game, plus minus says so. And then they just win because their starters are better, because Tyrese Haliburton's on the floor giving them good shots for everybody, right? When he has 11 assists and he's drawing this much attention, he led the team in shots. He was tied with Siakam. I should say, it's really hard to guard the Pacers. And the Wolves trying to mix in some sorts of weird coverages. They didn't do quite the Nets zany trap and then not trap and then trap again stuff, but they're trying to make him think and work, and it didn't work. And the other part of this was the Wolves' transition defense was awful, and Haliburton just punished them in the open floor in this game. The Wolves didn't match up or didn't want to run, or what, for whatever reason, they didn't play well. And in these kind of games, when Haliburton feasts, everybody feasts, at least guys who are available for catch and shoot opportunities. Aaron Nesmith, 17 points on 9 shots, hitting all 3 of his threes. He continues to play very well since the All-Star break. I haven't looked this up, but I believe he's over 15 points a game since the break. He's been very efficient. I don't want to get too much into Aaron Nesmith right this second, but a big part of his growth is being healthier, and a big part of that working for the Pacers is him and Tyrese Haliburton have just been awesome on the floor of late. A lot of bench guys had good scoring nights. Obviously, it'll be Toppin hitting 6 threes is a big part of that. Ben Mathurin, TJ McConnell in double digits. Siakam had the quietest 14 points of all time, right? Everybody can feast or play better when Haliburton has nights like this. And this streak of 11 straight post-All-Star has been nuts. If only had one more against Memphis, it would be the cleanest cut ever for describing all this. Tyrese Haliburton's very good. The Wolves specifically were not interested in playing transition defense very well today. That makes for him having a great night, and he did. He ran it down their throats and punished them, and this streak can continue, right? Especially if he keeps shooting this well. He's making the game look very easy when he is this fast, and he's able to get to the rim and draw this kind of attention and do it all in under 30 minutes of play. Really phenomenal game from Tyrese Haliburton. I thought he set the pace for the game and got the Pacers going in a way that was effective. And then in the third quarter, he needed to score, and he did. And he took the most predictable Tyrese Haliburton heat check of all time, and he missed it. And then he settled in and was great the rest of the game. And they brought him in when they needed someone to steady the ship, and he did just that in the fourth quarter after it got a little hairier, albeit not actually hairy. And yet, the farthest above expectation player was Obi Toppin. The unsung hero was Andrew Nembhard. What did they do to get the Pacers this win? And a few more notes from Pacers Wolves round 2. Before we get to any of that, we need to talk about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. They can be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When you start using Monarch, you realize just how much you can be spending on things like food delivery. Now you budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50%. Whew, how about that? off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Check out Locked On Wolves, where you can hear about the not so great in this game Wolves who did not get enough from Julius Randle, and Anthony Edwards didn't play great. Some of that because of Andrew Nembhard, some of that because of a thumb wrap that he was wearing. But they didn't play great at all, even beyond him. Even if he was great, the Wolves would have lost. The Pacers played quite well. We'll get to Andrew Nembhard in a second. We got to talk about Obi Toppin. What did the Wolves do to him? Did they like steal his lunch money? Did they give him a swirly? Like what does Obi Toppin have against the Wolves? Last week, 7 threes, a career high, coming against Minnesota, the best game of his Pacers tenure, 34 points, the game winner in overtime, just a magnificent game. This time, 6 for 9 from the field, made his only 2-pointer, so 7 for 10 in total on his way to 20 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist. The best bench player the Pacers had. They could play him with Siakam. They could play him in small ball groups. They could play him with the starters. They could play him with the bench. Toppin was good no matter what the group was because the shot was falling again. Sometimes it's that simple, and it was for Obi Toppin in this game. It's kind of boring to break down a game like this. I said the same thing when Myles Turner went crazy in Detroit and when Aaron Nesmith had his previous career high of 27, which he now beat with 30. Like in those games and in this one from Toppin, they just made the threes. That's good, right? That's a good night. That's a good performance is to make your threes. But the specifics of this one are sometimes how I feel about Siakam, which is the Wolves don't really have a good cover for Obi Toppin, right? Looking at their second unit, it's not just straight up like second unit play second unit, obviously. But DiVincenzo, Nasri, Nick Alexander-Walker, Jalen Clark, good players, but not a ton of size, like a lot of 6'5s in there, and then a center. And so they're reliance on either their starters, McDaniels and Randall, to be defending any 4 on the floor at all times, or they're giving up size, or they're giving up speed in the matchup with Obi Toppin. And that's a lot of games like this. He always does this against Philly, it feels like to me. Philly's never had the perfect answer for him, too, where that kind of game, he can just really impact things by speeding things up, by spacing the floor, by doing something of note. And in this one, it was that, and it was making six 3-point shots, which does a lot to help you win a game. The Wolves only made 9 as a team. Terrific game from Toppin, particularly shooting. He always, as he does, credits the Pacers guards and their system for making this possible. I've made the case for forever that he fits on the Pacers better than he would fit any other team in the league. And that remains the case to me in this game, though. He got open. He took the threes and he drilled them. One of them, he turned really far on the catch. He was facing like the sideline and turned and shot it. That's hard to do. That's a tough shot. He deserves a lot of credit for being able to do that and hit those in this game. Here's my crazy Obi Toppin stat for you. Obi Toppin has made now, after this game, 93s this season. 93s. He's made 13 of them just against Minnesota. 14.4% of every 3-point shot Obi Toppin has made this season has come against one team. Nearly 1/6 of his threes made the whole season came in 2 out of 70 games. That's crazy. That is crazy. 2 heaters against one team. I don't know what the Wolves did to deserve this, but Obi Toppin said, no. We're going to beat you guys. We're going to beat you guys twice. He was great again. The shooting, very important for the Pacers as they won this one. Great again from Obi Toppin. Also great, even though the stat line is very pedestrian, Andrew Nembhard was awesome. 3 for 7 for 6 points, and no one's going to lead with this guy. 5 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. Those are fine numbers, nothing crazy. 2 turnovers, okay. Why was he so good? Because he was great on Great on Anthony Edwards. To be clear, before you rush to comment and say, you idiot, you overlooked this. I walked right up to Anthony Edwards while he was warming up. I was about 3 feet away, and I took a picture so I could see the wrap on his thumb. It was significant, right? He has a lacerated thumb. He was a game-time decision. He did play. Certainly, he's impacted by something like that on his shooting hand. No doubt. However, I also watched the game and can tell you that Andrew Nembhard did a good job defending Ant. Ant, 1 for 11 on threes, was a little resistant to really pound it and go inside with Nembhard on him, so he settled for the jumpers that he couldn't make. When he did get inside, he did pretty well. He was 6 for 8 on twos, but he wasn't drawing a ton of fouls. He wasn't having the same usual 3-level scoring impact because he was limited on how much he could do. And Andrew Nembhard did a great job of containing him, keeping him away from the basket, not letting him get eager to drive or be powerful in the lane. 17 points on 19 shots for Ant, even with the injury. That's a remarkable defensive game. And only 4 assists to 3 turnovers. even with the caveats mentioned, a terrific game from Andrew Nembhard in that way. That's what they needed him to do well, and he did it, and that's why he was plus 19. That's the second best on the Pacers, right? He played the most minutes of any Pacer in this game because his defense was so important, right? He got a lot of this comment after the game. All defense. He should be all defense. And I would agree that per minute, per game, per whatever, Andrew Nembhard's been probably a top 10 defender in the league this year. Unfortunately, he's not going to reach the games. He's not going to get to 75 games because too many of his games won't count. He didn't reach the minutes in them. I think the max he can hit is 63. So while as an individual, if you just lined everybody up from best to worst, he might be a all defense level guy. He cannot actually get an all defensive team spot this year. However, he was awesome in this game, particularly because of his defense. And then the Wolves didn't have anybody to step up who could match it. Like only 9 points from Julius Randle. Jaden McDaniels had some nice shots against the Pacers the first time. That didn't happen this time. Gobert had 16 points on 8 makes, but a lot of those were possessions where he was scooping up his own misses. And nobody else was really warm except for Naz Reid. He played pretty well on offense, but not very well on the defensive end. And that's just, it was a lot for the Wolves to overcome, right? They didn't have anybody really playing well on both ends or being so forceful that the Pacers had to respond or change their game plan to hang with that one player. And so 3 guys, Haliburton, Toppin, and Nembhard, all having an exceptional and obvious impact was enough for the Pacers to win. They were all quite good. Other notes to clean up before we talk about a 3-seed chase with Gavin Shaw. 1, Aaron Nesmith was good. I already mentioned this. 17 points and 7 boards. When he's getting rolling inside the arc, it's just tough to guard him. 4 more makes from 2s and 3s for him in this game. He was punishing towards the rim. He was beating closeouts. I asked Rick Carlisle about it after the game. He talked about the 1-2 punch kind of. That's not how he said it, but like of the Nesmith-Mathurin duo and how, the position they play means that they score in different ways. They just are a good tandem of scoring and shooting and spacing in that way. And Nesmith was quite good in this one. I need to do a deeper dive on what's made him so good post All-Star besides just getting healthier because, yes, he's made a bunch of threes. It's going to make him look good, but I think it's noticeable. I think everybody's noticed how much better he's been inside the arc when he's run off the line, when defenders pressure him. The best TJ McConnell, not the best, but a very good TJ McConnell game. 5 for 10 for 10 points with 5 boards and 4 assists and no turnovers and a McConnell steal. He played very well. He got to those shots that he made so often last year, and he made them. That's going to lead to a good night for him. His McConnell was awesome. They're all very fun. It's all very disruptive to the opponent and what they're trying to do. And then poor Thomas Bryant got the ball and tried to dunk. He could not dunk from where he was standing. He traveled. That did not go according to plan for Thomas Bryant. He did not play particularly well. He's been not having a good month of March. No one else really super standoutish to me from the Pacers in this game. Ben Mathurin defended well, had 6 boards, but 5 fouls, 11 points for him on 8 shots. He got to the line a lot, as he does. Leading the Pacers in free throw attempts, continues to play pretty well. Good win for the Pacers. Normalcy matters at some point. Like, it's good to have, they can say 2 things. One, they can say, look, they won these games that they played before this one. They were chaotic, they were fun, and they won, and they never have to apologize for that. And they can say, hey, yeah, this is great. We're learning playoff lessons. We know how to handle these scenarios. That's all true. But also, like, they weren't playing great. They kept getting in their own way a lot of the time. Had to get out of their own way. Had to figure out solutions they didn't need to be in position to figure out. In this game, they were mature the whole time. They never trailed for a second. Against Minnesota, they're good. They never trailed. They got a 20-point lead and didn't blow it. That's a very low bar to clear, but they did it. They had good play from their stars. They had good play from their role players. Their bench didn't suck. Their defense was pretty good. That was a very mature win for a Pacers team that's been begging for mature wins this season. Now they got LeBron. That'll be fun on Wednesday. We'll talk about that when the time comes. But now I want to talk about something that I've hinted at in standings watches because Jalen Brunson got hurt, and now I can actually dive into it with somebody who knows the Knicks situation well. Gavin Shaw texted me last night. He hosts Locked On Knicks. He said, Tony, you know what we should talk about? Chase for the 3 seed. Is that something that's interesting? I said, why, yes. Yes, it is. So we talked about it for 20 minutes. Should the Pacers want the 3 seed? Can they catch the Knicks? Do they want to catch the Knicks? What do the Knicks want to do? How will Jalen Brunson's return impact all this? Let's close out Locked On Pacers with a chase for the 3 seed conversation with Gavin Shaw. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Locked On Knicks could be your second listen, or Locked On Bucks. Pacers thrilled to see the Bucks lose to the Suns. They have a 2-game lead over the 5th seed now in the Eastern Conference standings race, and they are chasing the Knicks the third seeded Knicks, who are missing Jalen Brunson and lost to the Hornets and Spurs of late. Can they catch the Knicks? Should they want to catch the Knicks? What will the race for the 3 seed, if there is even a race, actually look like? Gavin Shaw from Locked On Knicks and I going to break it down, coming right up here on Locked On Pacers.
But let's zoom out and talk the race for the third seed in the Eastern Conference. Knicks right now, of course, they are the third seed. 44-26, missing a very key component with Jalen Brunson out at least one more week with a sprained ankle. Indiana on their tails, 41-29, 3 games back. The Knicks have the 6th hardest remaining schedule. The Pacers have the 12th hardest remaining schedule. Both teams play the Cavs 2 more times. The Knicks also have to play the Celtics, the Clippers, the Pistons, the Bucks, and they get the Mavs tonight, possibly with Anthony Davis back. Pacers have 1 more against Oklahoma City, 1 more against the Nuggets, 1 more against the Lakers, 1 more against the Wolves. And on the good side, they get the Wizards twice, Hornets once, Jazz once. I say all this to say, Tony, is this something you're talking about, thinking about? Do you think that Indiana has a realistic shot at the third seed?
Yeah, for the last month of every season, I do 1 segment per week on here's the stuff in the standings to keep an eye on, whether it's playoff seeding or draft stuff. And the very first week of it, I said, we'll talk about the Knicks right now, but I don't think I'm going to be talking about the Knicks for much longer. And guess what happened that week, Evan? Jalen Brunson got hurt, and that completely flipped that thinking on its head, because at first, I'm speaking to your listeners a little bit. They all obviously know this. When New York crushed Sacramento and then got the Mikal Bridges buzzer beater in Portland, I thought that probably just got them 3 because they snuck out 2 tough wins without him. And so I kind of I'll stop talking about that. And then they lost to Charlotte and San Antonio. And now it's a thing again. And so it's a really interesting race in that I still feel like it's a really tough climb for the Pacers. They don't have the tiebreaker. The Knicks can still win against lesser teams, even good teams. Beating the Kings in Portland right now isn't easy to do without Brunson, but it's obviously way harder. And their schedule is very challenging in a way that makes it plausible. So I think it is a race now. The question is, I wonder this about both these teams. I'm curious about your opinion. Should either of them want it to be a race? Is the 4 seed actually better? It's kind of an interesting thing, the way the East has shaken out this year.
Yeah, I think Cleveland losing 3, is it 4 in a row now? Certainly 3 in a row.
They beat the Jazz last night, but they did not look good in that game.
Yeah, that doesn't count. They have to win their next game for the sorry, David Locke, our boss who signs our checks. Anyways, I would be on the same page that personally, I would much rather the Knicks have the 4 seed. I would not give them much of a chance against Cleveland in a series. It's been that kind of year where, you asked me even a month ago, I would have said, you know what, that could be a toss up. I think the Knicks will play well against the Cavs. The Knicks haven't seen them with Mitchell Robinson yet. It'll be interesting to see those final 2 games. And yet not much of a chance. There is 25% chance. I give them sub 10%, maybe a 10% chance, but really that 10% chance is does Jason Tatum turn an ankle and miss the whole series? Because I don't really think they can play with Boston right now. In that sense, I would strongly prefer for them to have the 4 seed. I don't think Tom Thibodeau in any multiverse is ever going to think that way. And if I'm Indiana, I'm pretty content staying there, because I would kind of think the same thing about the Pacers, where Cleveland would be an obvious favorite. But you tell me, Tony, would you feel you know what, we have a puncher's chance against that team? The talent on paper, there's not such a big gap that it's impossible that Indy could get hot for 2 weeks and beat Cleveland.
I share your opinion that their chances of beating either Boston or Cleveland are not very high, pretty low.
Fair. Yeah.
I would say their chance. Here's what the argument for getting 3 would be is you think beating Detroit, or anyone thinks beating Detroit is, if it's Detroit at 6, so much easier than beating Indiana or Milwaukee or whoever in the 4 or 5, right? That would be the argument to get 3 is even if you think it's way harder to beat Boston, you have a better chance to get to Boston. But I, like you, don't know that Detroit is so much easier than everybody. I think they're probably the easiest of the top 6 teams, but not so much easier than anyone else that you're willing to give up that conference finals equity in the second round. And I feel bad for the Cavs every time I talk like this. Their record is insane. They just steamroll everybody. They are playing not great right this second. But I also think, we just saw it happen, that Boston is a more formidable playoff opponent. And so if you can avoid their side of the bracket, I think that's ideal. And for the Pacers specifically, who did not lose a home game until the conference finals in the playoffs last year, as the Knicks know, getting a home court advantage situation where you also avoid Boston seems like the sweet spot. even if you have to sacrifice maybe a little bit of first round equity, but that's obviously like, you can't just pick your seed, right? Like it's impossible to game it. And so in some ways, maybe you like kind of chase 3 and see how the chips fall. And like, it's really hard because let's say you don't chase 3 with that in mind and the Bucks surge and then you're 5 all of a sudden, and then you're on the road and maybe you lose. Like it's just a really hard balance to strike. So yeah, I think we're kind of in lockstep there. It's just not easy to just be like, yeah, we picked 4. Let's do that. Like you can't just do it. It's so close.
Can you help me through this from a Knicks first round perspective? Because it's something Alex and I have discussed. I've ranked those teams probably much to your chagrin. Milwaukee, Detroit, Indy in terms of who I'm kind of most afraid of, and I think I'm probably being too disrespectful to the Pacers, a team that obviously beat the Knicks
handled them this year
ago. And yeah, and I mean Pascal Siakam in particular like scares the bejesus out of me. Like that guy is just a playoff killer, and like I still like wake up in a cold sweat with him hitting like another mid range jumper over anyone not named OG Anunoby when they had to guard him. But that being said, I think those 3 teams are so I don't really know how to sort those 3 teams out in my head. Like Giannis is obviously the best player on any of those teams. And like that, like just the idea that he could put up 50 for, again, 2 weeks and knock you out is terrifying. I think Detroit, frankly, has been the best of the 3, like the last 40 games or so. And I don't know if that's a particularly controversial statement. I don't know if they're still first. As of a week ago, they had like the best defense in the NBA over their last 10 games or so. Obviously, I kind of think Cade Cunningham is a monster. He might be, this is an insult to Tyrese Haliburton a little bit, but he might be second for me in that like best player conversation. Like young, hungry. I'm just wondering, like, does it all translate right away? And does their shooting issues like, does that make it a little harder for them to come playoff time versus a team like Indiana that is absolutely not a question for. So I'm curious if you were wearing a Knicks hat right now and yelling bing bong into your microphone, how would you like rank those 3 opponents for the Knicks and like who they should want to play?
Yeah, I don't. Without knowing specifically their individual results against those teams, they play the Bucks this week, I believe, which will be potentially telling as well.
The Knicks have killed the Bucks. They're 1-2 against Detroit, and you've seen the Indy games.
And they handled the Pacers in MSG. I mean, the Pacers shot awful. I think that was like their worst 3-point percentage game in like 5 years or something.
There's so many open ones too that just weren't going in. But yeah.
But the Pacers win over New York in November was like that would be their vision for that series, because that game Mathurin and Haliburton and Turner were all cooking, and Siakam was pretty good. And then in February, the Knicks just came back in and said, "Nope, we're better here. Stay away." And so that is a challenging matchup for the Pacers. They have a lot of guys who I would consider pace control guys. Like the Pacers want to run and play fast. And like a lot of times when they're not playing well, they bring in Quentin Jackson or Obi Toppin, and those guys juice up the game, and all of a sudden it turns and they can play their style a little bit better. The Knicks have a lot of guys who don't want to speed it up. They want to bring it to a Knicks pace, and they can do that either because they're really good on defense, whether that's switching or guarding their yard or whatever, or they can give it to Jalen Brunson, who can handle the ball for a long time and still make successful plays regardless of a shot clock situation. I'm not saying the Knicks are like a slow-paced team, but just they can control the tempo of a game in a way that I don't know if they're – what are they in pace, like 22nd or something? They can control the tempo of a game in a way that really hurts the Pacers. It makes it tough for them to play their way. So even if they're not playing bad, they aren't playing their way against the Knicks in a way that they have had success doing against Detroit and Milwaukee. I mean, this year they're struggling with Milwaukee, but last year they crushed them a bunch. So I get what you're saying. I'm surprised about Detroit over Indiana, though. I not that Detroit isn't good. They're very good. Their defense is very solid. JB Bickerstaff's playoff resume just isn't that whelming to me. But Cade could be awesome, right? Their turnover problems and that hurdle seem like big hurdles to me, even though I agree with you that they are, I might be overlooking them a little bit, and they are very good. Like they just won without Cade. They just beat New Orleans without him. Like they have a lot of solutions. They can guard, they can shoot. They have a lot of awesome role players. I think the reason I'm going to look like an idiot if they went around is because we just haven't seen it. And so it's harder for me to pick that or to gravitate to that. But I don't think your rankings are crazy, but I think a lot of Knicks people want to see the Pacers again after that series last year, too.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm overreacting to like the Knicks just being completely unable to guard Cade Cunningham in that last game, and that incled like OG Anunoby getting time on him.
He is crazy.
Yeah, he just like they did not have like any kind of chance against him. Like, and they're throwing a lot. And I do think Mikal Bridges, like he's been up and down on defense this year, but I think having him to throw at Haliburton, OG to throw at Siakam, like it makes me a little more confident, because last year just like it was, all right, who are you going to put OG on? And then like, who's going to cook you at times in that series. And I do wonder if Cat like equalizes. And I think Indiana, like maybe this should be the case for the Knicks, like being like just transparently afraid of Indiana, is that once they lost Hartenstein, like ideally they would have kept him. But I do think that Indiana series is like why they went out and got Cat, and like wanting to play at that pace, wanting to have that ceiling offensively, and saying like, hey, we can be as gritty as we want. We can be as good defensively in the playoffs as we want. Like there are going to be games where like Indiana's playing fast and like raining threes, and you are just going to have to try to outscore them. And the Knicks, after a whole bunch of injuries, couldn't quite do that a year ago. But I'm fascinated, Tony, before we sign off on this, like what you think about Indiana's ceiling in this year's playoffs. Like they are like in this type of conversation, like one of the most interesting teams in the NBA, because you could be like a glass half empty guy and say, all right, maybe if Milwaukee's healthy, like they don't get out of the first round. Maybe if New York's healthy, they don't get out of the second round. And then you can zoom out and you could say they weren't healthy in the third round. And it was only 5 games, but or maybe it was 4. I might be misremembering, but they pushed Boston last year, like more than any other team. Like they played them, I thought, like substantially better than Dallas did. And like, frankly, like not to twist the knife for Indiana fans, but like could have been a 2-0 in that series. And I've heard you talk on your pod about the fact that the defense is better this year. The offense is worse than anyone expected. That gives them a higher floor, lower ceiling. Do you like, not to like get too granular and spend like an hour on this, but I'm like fascinated, like why the offense isn't quite as good. And like, if that's something that Indiana could find again in the playoffs and like combine best of both worlds and maybe like make another surprise run to a conference finals.
Yeah, they can. I think they can win around, certainly. And like, it's funny that like this whole change of Pacers profile that you just described, and you're right, I still feel that way, lower ceiling, higher floor. They're still like the same win profile team. And what I mean by that is they, for some reason, stink when they play just bad teams. It's the most bizarre thing ever. They have 16 losses below 500 teams. That's more than anyone in the top 11 in the East, right? What? But they're really good when they play good teams. They have a winning record against above 500 teams. It's only them, Cleveland and Boston, who've done that in the East. Good news for the Pacers. In the playoffs, you only play good teams.
No
right?
bad teams.
Yeah, there's no bad teams in the playoffs. So like, if they're like, I don't know if it's a maturity thing, if it's something about the way they play, like it's 2 years running with the same roster, it's a problem, right? Obviously, they just can't get up for those games. If they can keep that being a thing where they're just like lasered in and focused, even with a different profile of defense and offense, I still think they can win around and probably would be favored to win around if they finish 4. Cleveland and Boston are really good, really good teams. I mean, like I don't think people realize like 57-14 is like insane. You're winning 6 out of 7 like a whole season, or 5 out of 6 like a whole season. It's crazy. Oklahoma City's about to be 60-12. That's barely better than the Cavs. Like it's just nuts how good those teams at the top are. I don't know how you feel Knicks-wise about this. I think the Knicks have had the opposite problem where they've just mopped up bad teams but haven't gotten that signature win quite yet. Everybody thought it was going to be that Lakers game, and then just that was sad. I wanted the Knicks to win that one. Where, the Knicks certainly would feel like they should win the first round, but might have the same hurdles of the top 2 teams might just be better, even though the Knicks obviously have a very high ceiling as well with their offense this year. So I think the Pacers feel about there, but with a lower offensive level this season, and a lot of that's that to start the season, they were just awful. They were 10-15 and Haliburton didn't look the same. But even since then, they're probably only 5th or 6th, right? If they can't get back to that level, does that impede them from winning a single round? I don't know, because their defense is better, like meaningfully better in a way that could win them a game or 2 in the postseason. They have won games because of their defense this year. That never happened last year. So having more ways to win is good. Maybe that earns them 1 postseason win. But I do think if they want to do what they did last year, where Joe Mazzulla saying, yeah, the Pacers series was by far our hardest series that we had in the playoffs last year, they've got to get a little bit more clicking on the offensive end before the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the Knicks are in a very similar spot. I just like sped wrote this down before coming on, but my Eastern Conference years would be Boston, Cleveland. I think the Knicks are tier 2 of their own, and then tier 3 would be Detroit, Milwaukee, Indiana. My caveat there is I think the Knicks are significantly closer to being a tier 3 team than a tier 1 team, which is kind of the opposite of what I would have said, even like 20 games into the season. And that's it is a full couple of podcasts of reasons why that's the case. The main one is I think this is somewhat of a flawed roster. And on top of that, Tom Thibodeau has not been able to maximize the ingredients he's been given to cook with. The starting lineup has been remarkably mediocre over an extraordinarily large sample size that I guess is getting smaller by the day. Without Jalen Brunson, has forced him to experiment a little bit. And if the Knicks leaned into certain players, specifically
Tyler Kolek, let's go.
Yeah, Tyler Kolek, maybe even more so Deuce McBride. But yeah, Tyler Kolek, hey, you know what he did the other day? 7 assists, plus 15, 3 steals, no turnovers in a quarter. That is the first in NBA history. That is not cherry picking. He is just a future Hall of Famer.
Tyrese Haliburton, write that down.
Yeah. Honestly, he's short, shorter arms, not as good shooting. Tyrese Haliburton. I don't know where that gets you, but we'll find out. Anyways, I would say Detroit, Milwaukee, Indiana, tier 3, and then maybe Orlando, Atlanta, Chicago, just as an FU to the Miami Heat. I'm not even putting them in there, but that would kind of be where things stand. But to me, the Knicks are far from a sure bet to get out of the first round right now. And whether it's Indiana, whether it's Milwaukee, whether it's Detroit, I would make the Knicks solid favorites in any of those series. I think they are far from unbeatable in any of those series. And on the flip side, I don't have to belabor the point. I think it is a real long shot that they beat Boston. And I think Cleveland would maybe not miraculous, but it would take something changing for the Knicks to beat the Cavs. Tony, maybe we finish on this. Where do you think Indiana ultimately finishes? And in your to what we're talking about, in your perfect world, where would you want them to finish?
I think they finish 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Their schedule is getting harder now that they just had an easy week with 2 Brooklyn games and a Dallas game. But after this week, they play the Wolves, the Lakers, and the Thunder this week. They really have 2 more hard games, or maybe 3. The rest of the way, we'll see what those Cleveland games to end the year look like. Obviously, the Cavs are on the schedule, but exceedingly likely the Cavs have clinched the 1 seed by then. So we'll see what the Cavaliers, I'll put in air quotes, actually are for those games. So I think it's they'll have a lot of control over finishing above 6, I think, but getting up to 3, do they want to? How much I think you're right that Tibbs will keep pushing the gas when Brunson comes back. They'll want to integrate him, right? They probably should want to integrate him to some extent. Maybe that's just rosy Pacers want to be 4-5 thinking, but I think 4-5 in either of those seeds is their most likely finish, kind of pending Damian Lillard health, Bucks recovery, because they weren't playing that good before Dame went down anyway. So I think 4 is probably slightly the most likely and 5 is second. But if they really get on a roll, they could get to 3, and then that'll be another thing I have to talk about every day. Woohoo! More seeding permutations.
We feel.
How good is Brunson going to be when he returns? That'd be my last 60-second question of this discussion.
You said how good will he be when he comes back?
If he's not 100%, that also is a big part of this.
Yeah, so I don't to the point of this whole conversation, I think the stupidest thing the Knicks could possibly do is rush him back in any way. Obviously you want him to get a couple of games under his belt, but that just cannot be at the risk of re-injury and it's much more important he's healthy for the first playoff game than in a great rhythm, because I think he's someone capable of finding that very quickly, even after a substantial layoff. We know he's out at least this week, so that'll be Dallas, the Clippers, Milwaukee, and likely a home game against Portland. And then they get the Sixers on Tuesday. I don't see any reason why you'd play him in that game. I will maybe apologize for that when Quentin Grimes drops a 50-piece on our heads in a revenge game, and then I'll have to apologize. But I would say Wednesday, April 2nd against Cleveland, and my gut instinct would be you bring him back, you play him 18 minutes that first game, maybe 28 minutes that second game, and then full bore the third. That is my instinct. The way this will probably go is they'll bring him back and he'll play 40. And that's not me being oh, crazy Tom Thibodeau in his minutes. I think Brunson will come back and be no, I'm good. I'm on the court. I'm playing, and kind of insist on staying out there. I don't know if he'll win that battle. I don't know if the Knicks medical staff will win that battle, but I would say after maybe 2 games where he's a little bit off, I think we'll get pretty close to 100% Brunson, as long as the Knicks don't rush him back, which I, again, think would be an absolutely crazy thing to do. To answer my own question, I'm on the same page as you. I'd be surprised if the Knicks fall out of the 3 seed again. I think it's totally doable to go 2-2 this week, even without Jalen Brunson. Whether the Knicks actually pull that off will remains to be seen. But then the finish is encouraging for me. Boston, like, you don't know, they might be sitting guys for that April 8th game at Detroit. It's going to be really tough on April 10th if they're still battling. I have a feeling Cleveland's going to be sitting everyone Friday, April 11th, and then the Knicks finish at the net. So they should be able to finish 3-1, and to me, that should be enough to push them over the top. But Tony East, always a pleasure, man. For everyone listening here on the Locked On Knicks side, can you tell them where they can find their great work if they want to be convinced that the Pacers are more of a threat than the Bucks or the Pistons are?
Locked On Pacers every day. If there's a Pacers Knicks series, I will go to the Big Apple again. My wallet says, please do not give me another Pacers Knicks series, but I did have a lot of fun up there. And I write in Forbes every so often about the team too.
All right, awesome. I hope everyone follows along. I know I've been eyeing them since last year. Knicks fans, they want a chance of revenge. Maybe they'll get it. Until then, he's Tony East. I'm Gavin Joe. We'll talk to you soon on Locked On Pacers and Locked On Knicks.